All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started here in just a second. We'll give people just another few seconds to jump in and then we'll get going. All right, well, let's get started. I want to thank everyone for joining today. Today's webinar is the easy way to rank number one for landscaping near me. Now, we can use those terms interchangeably. It could be landscaping near me, it could be painters near me, it could be electricians near me. So, whatever your home service business is, or whatever your business in general is, you can absolutely uh, find answers to how to rank number one today. So I'm excited to have you join us. My name is Jonathan Watkins, and I'm with JBX Strategies. We are a leading digital marketing agency, or what I like to think of us as a leading marketing agency. We're focused on the home service industry, and today we're going to walk you through a simple, effective approach to ranking higher using search intent instead of keyword repetition. If you want to stop writing for search engines and start writing content that actually ranks and converts, you're in the right place. All right. And we've got Sophie helping us with the slide deck. So, why are we here today, right? A lot of businesses believe that ranking is about stuffing pages with keywords, but SEO, or what we call search engine optimization, has evolved. Search engines now understand meaning. They understand context. They understand our behavior, right? Before it was just keyword stuffing, landscaping, 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 Minneapolis, landscaping, Orlando. Today we're covering how intent impacts ranking, the traps to avoid, and how to build a keyword strategy that actually works, especially for competitive terms like landscaping near me. And again, for the purposes of this webinar, it could be whatever home service business you're in. We're just using landscaping as an example, okay? All right, moving on. The myth is more keywords equal better rankings. And that's a huge misconception in search engine optimization. Is repeating a keyword over and over helps you rank. That used to be true, 10, 15 years ago, which is an eternity in the internet world. But, today keyword stuffing actually hurts your rankings, and you really have to stop doing that. Google and other search engines, they see that as low quality uh, content, and they see it as spammy, right? It makes your content look robotic, right? It's very hard to read, and when users bounce quickly from your website, Google takes that as a sign that your page isn't delivering value. All right. So what does Google reward, right? If stuffing doesn't work anymore, and that's why you guys are here, you're here to find out what does work, right? Google rewards meaning over keywords. I want to repeat that because it's very important. Google now rewards meaning over keywords. And that means it's looking for content that is relevant. It's high quality and aligned with what the searcher actually intends to find. And we've talked about it in many other webinars. You've got to write content for what your clients are searching for. Put yourself in those shoes, right? Engagement, excuse me, expertise and depth matter far more than keyword volume. And I'll just leave it at that because, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we've got to write around intent and get away. And keywords are important, but we just can't, keyword. All right, moving on, the new ranking game, right? And AI has changed that a lot. And we've got, like I said, other webinars that talk about how to write content for AI and things like that. But, search intent is the reason behind the search, right? What is the intent? When someone types in landscaping near me or painting contractor near me, They may be looking for prices. They may be looking for ideas. They may be looking for pictures. They're looking for maybe a company to hire, or they're looking for, a specific business, right? Google groups intent into four types of information, or excuse me, Google groups intent into four types. It's informational, number one, commercial investigation, number two, transactional, number three, and navigational, number four. And we'll get into that in more detail later on in this PowerPoint, but your content must match the searcher's mindset to rank effectively. And like I mentioned in a previous slide, we need to write, or you guys need to write content, or if we're writing content for our clients, we have to live in our client's mind. You have to get out of your own paradigm that Stephen Covey talks a lot about in that Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you want a great book to read, that's an old one, but goody. But anyway, your content must match the searcher's mindset to rank effectively. Okay, uh, why intent matters. Okay, um, when you align your content with intent, users stay longer. They read more, and most importantly, they convert more. Okay. I'll say that again. When you align your content with intent, users are going to stay on your website longer or your Google business profile longer. They're going to read more, they're going to look at pictures, and you know what happens? They convert more. So really the moral of the story, and I want everyone to stay on this webinar, it's all about the content. It really is. And it tells Google, when you have really good content, that tells Google your page is helpful. And helpful pages makes you rise in the rankings. And at the end of the day, you want to be on that first page of search. All right, moving on. The problem with landscaping near me, again, this could be painting contractor near me, electrician near me, window washer near me. These are interchangeable, okay? A search like landscaping near me doesn't mean one thing. Customers may be looking for lawn care. They may be looking for landscape design. They could be looking for hardscapes. They could be looking for irrigation repair. They could be looking for paver patios. The list goes on and on and on. If your content only covers one small part of landscaping, Google won't see you as a top result for the entire category. Okay. All right. So what does Google see? And we'll move on here. Google understands near me as a combination of three things: local relevance, service relevance, and authority. Okay. Again, on our PowerPoint, I don't need to read PowerPoints to you, but near me equals local plus relevant plus comprehensive. I like to use the word authority. So local relevance, service relevance, and authority. And that builds trust. And what that really means is your pages need to show breadth, right? They've got to be deep. You just can't write a sentence or two. You've got to show that you actually provide the full scope of landscaping services customers commonly associate with the term near me. Okay. All right. Next slide. So what are some of the traps to avoid? Okay. Um, the biggest mistakes businesses make when trying to rank locally, as I mentioned earlier, are keyword stuffing. Really thin service pages. And what I mean by that is typically, under 150 words, so there's not too many words. And using just the home page, how many websites have you gone to? And this is important. I'm going to spend a second on this, but when you use just, the home page for all of your information and you list all of your services on there, and I'll get to this a little bit later, and you don't have a service page for every service that you have, or you don't have a city page for every city that you have, that would be considered, thin services. Okay. Um, so anyway, no city and again, like I mentioned, no city or service pages, right? You do not need to have a service page for every city you serve on day one. If you're just building out your website, pick five because you can't, if you service, 20 cities, you can't go out and build, another 20 pages to your website. Well, you currently certainly could, and we could certainly help you do that. But my point is, we'll start with your top five cities that you serve. Start with your top five or six services that you serve and build a page for each of those, okay? And you could pick cities with strong search volume, right? So if you want some help, like deciding, hey, what cities are searching for landscapers? We're out of Minnesota, but we service the country, right? But if you're in Nashville, are there suburbs of Nashville that are searching for landscaping services, right? Are certain cities searching more than other cities, right? And so the other thing that you can do is, like I mentioned, is the search volume. Um, on certain cities. And then the other thing that you can do, and we've talked about this before, is make sure your Google business profile is up to date. And then, especially if you're in the home service businesses, right? If you're a window cleaner or a painting contractor or an electrician, if you're an electrician, take pictures of a before panel and an after panel. If you're a window cleaner, take a picture of a dirty window and what it looks like with you after you clean your window. A yard where there's no pool and then you install a pool and you've got all that content, or excuse me, all those images. Those are great. And try to stay away from stock photos if at all. Everyone's got, and I've got my background on, but everyone has one of these that have world-class cameras on them. Take pictures, throw those into Dropbox, and then get those on your website, get those on your Google business profile. And I don't want to say most importantly because they all play a key role, right? So we're talking about service pages, we're talking about city pages on your website, we're talking about making sure you've got your Google business profile up to date. We're talking about real high quality photos, reviews. Google loves if you're getting consistent reviews. And you know what they love more is when you respond to them. So if you're not responding to your Google reviews, make sure you do that within 2 or 3 days. And there's software out there that can automate this if you get busy and you forget about it and you miss a Google review. So certainly reach out with any questions. Um, no internal linking. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. That's a little bit more technical, but if you have any questions on internal linking, we can certainly address that at some point, but no internal linking. So just avoid these traps, or avoiding these traps can improve your rankings dramatically. And you don't have to do everything all at once. Just pick one thing and start there. Okay, so the point is just start. All right, moving on. It's like the show moving on up. I gotta stop saying moving up, moving on. All right. What is our framework? Okay. What we do at JBX Strategies to help our clients outrank their competitors, we've got five parts. It's primary intent keywords, it's supporting topics, it's local modifiers, and it's intent matched pages. And if I were going to add anything to that, it would be trust signals, right? If you want to add a fifth, it's what are the trust signals? This framework builds depth and it builds authority. And that's two of Google's biggest ranking factors: depth, which is really good content, and authority. Um, so let's get into that in a little bit more, I guess, depth, right? What do those things mean, right? What is primary intent, all right? So step one, primary intent keywords, these are your broad high level terms. And again, I'm not going to read the PowerPoint to you, but it's like landscaping near me, landscaping services, or landscaping in Minneapolis, or landscaping in Nashville. These anchor your main pages and define what your business is primarily about. All right, step two, supporting topics. To build topical authority, you need pages that cover all the related services. If you're a landscaping company, what are all the services that you do? And there can be a lot. We're working with a landscaping company. We got 35 service pages. And it sounds like a lot, but when you start going through it, and it may be a service that you don't like to do. It may not be very profitable, but you got a phone call for it, and then all of a sudden you go out and you have a discovery meeting with your client to see if you guys are a good fit. And then they're like, well, yeah, we actually are looking to do an irrigation system, but we're putting in a pool and we need a retaining wall. So you never know. So the point is, if you can have a service page for every service that you do, that would be great. All right, so when Google, and I'll just wrap up step two here in just a second. But when Google sees consistent, relevant content across all the topics, it recognizes you as an expert in the category. Okay, step three, local modifiers. All right, thank you, Sophie. So local modifiers, local search depends heavily on proximity and relevance. So add city, add your neighborhood, add county specific variations throughout your content, right? And I'm just going to give you an example real quick. And this is before I got into marketing, right? And some of you may know in my past, we had a technology company we sold, and we've been in the marketing business for 3 years. But I bought a place up in the middle of nowhere in northern Minnesota, and I was looking for pest control, and I typed in pest control near me, and I went to a page for a pest control company. It said pest control in Aiken County, Minnesota, and it had a place that was 45 minutes away that did pest control. And I was like, wow, I went to a page. So I saw that work for the first time before I got into the marketing business. And it's wild. So this stuff works, okay? So don't forget to add a city, neighborhood, and county specific variations throughout your content, right? Pages like landscaping in, like I said, Nashville, or landscaping in Minnesota, or excuse me, landscaping in Aiken County, right? Local landscapes in the areas that you serve. Okay. All right. Step four is intent matched pages. What the heck does that mean, right? Some of this stuff sounds complicated. What does intent matched pages mean, right? Here's where most businesses fall a little short, right? You need pages that match exactly what people want. And I know I've talked about a little bit on this, PowerPoint earlier, but what do your clients want? What are they searching for? Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you need to have all these pages that match exactly what people want. You need to think like your customers, right? A landscaping near me page, as an example, right? You need a detailed service pages that I've talked about earlier, city landing pages, FAQs, and cost guides. There's a lot of debate right now for home service companies as far as cost guides. People want to know roughly how much something costs, right? How much is a paver patio? If you could say, X amount of feet of paver patio is going to be X, Y, and Z price, people are starting to look for pricing, right? And then we're asking our clients, keep an FAQ. If you're answering the phone or you're responding to form fills, write down what those questions people are asking, and you want to write content to answer those questions. Okay. These match, and when you do that, it'll match multiple intents, excuse me, and re it'll create a more complete website experience. And that's what I talked about earlier. People, Google ranks, they don't rank necessarily websites, they rank the pages, right? So it'll help be a complete customer experience if you do some of those things. All right. We're getting there. All right. Step five, trust and engagement. You know, Google cares deeply about trust. Real photos, like I mentioned, reviews, pricing ranges, case studies, all of this boosts credibility. And when search engines see real world proof, your rankings improve instantly. And you really want to be on that first page. All right. So if you can move on to the next one, let's give you some examples of a high ranking page anatomy. All right. Here's what a number one ranking page usually includes clear intent, matched headline. All right. And again, I'm going to read these to you on this one, but a strong introduction explaining who it's for, a full service overview. Again, local service area details, photos, examples, reviews, answers to common questions. Again, that FAQ is so important. Internal links to relevant pages. You know, this combination, if you do this, it checks really every box that Google looks for. Okay. So you can go to the next slide, Sophie. What not to do. All right. You want to do that too. So I just gave you what to do. What not to do is, on the flip side, uh, here's what hurts you, right? And I talked about it earlier, having a real thin service page. You know, if your service page is, 150 words, um, think about having that be about 800 to maybe 1,500 words. And it doesn't have to be all in one paragraph form. You could have like one paragraph and then have boxes of the services and explain that in detail. Okay. And again, we've talked about it. Keyword stuff paragraphs, just absolutely just a no-go from here on out. Don't stuff keywords into your paragraphs. It looks brutal. It sounds brutal. It doesn't look like you put any time to developing your content. Uh, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a photographer. I've been shooting professionally for 11 years. I do a lot of photography for our clients. Get away from the stock photos. Everyone's got these $1,000 cameras and computers in your phone, in your hands. Look, you may not think they're a good photo, but start using the photos that you guys take or your crew takes when they're on site. And then listing services without depth. Again, these all signal low quality to both the user, which is your client or potential client, and Google, and you're just not going to show up on the first page. All right. What to do? And that's why you guys are here, right? Well, what do I do? And I've already given you some things. If you want to rank well, again, focus on depth in the content, be very clear, have some clarity. And your visuals, like we talked about, your photos, your before and afters, and natural writing. And I'm going to talk about this for a second, this natural writing. Please stay away. We're not saying that AI is bad, and I'm not saying don't use Gemini or ChatGPT or Grok, but what I want you to do is do research on what your customers are searching for. Think about what your customers are looking for. And take an old school pen and paper and write that down or type up a note to yourself and then feel free to have Grok or AI or ChatGPT, whatever you're using, say, hey, does this sound okay? Is this pretty good? And then, write your content as if you're in the 10th grade, right? Don't write it at that college level because it sounds, I don't want to sound like it's super educated, but we write typically our content at the ninth or 10th grade level. But please spend some time if you're doing blogs, which are super important. I haven't addressed them in this webinar. We've had other webinars where we talk about them, but if you're doing blogs, spend some time doing research, spend some time writing your thoughts out on a piece of paper. And then if you want to use AI to clean it up, that's fine too. But look for like words that look like, hey, this was completely written by AI. You don't want to do that. And it's okay to do keyword research. Again, with this keyword stuff, I want to be careful. You want to find the words that people are using, and you want to incorporate that into your content. What we're saying, you just don't want to repeat them over and over and over because it looks kind of crazy, right? And that goes into like, explain, tape, when you're writing this stuff out, explain your services in detail. Show through images and taking pictures, real work. And then we talked about reviews. Use genuine reviews and create an easy to navigate structure on your website. And if you ever want a website audit, we're doing these webinars for free. We're not here to sell a bunch of stuff, but if you ever want a website audit and a content audit, we can do that. All right, and we're just wrapping up here. So what are the key takeaways today? right? And we crammed a lot of stuff into 25 minutes and we're going to finish on time. But what are the the key takeaways? And I love the PowerPoint. It's like key stuffing's bad, key stuffing's dead. We've kind of hit that home. Keyword stuffing is dead. And it's really outdated, right? Because AI has gotten so sophisticated and these, multi-billion dollar companies, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini, um, they understand intent. And intent drives rankings. And again, like I mentioned earlier, depth and relevance beat keyword volume. Again, depth and relevance beat keyword volume. And again, those local signals matter. And I won't get into that because we talked about that earlier, but those local signals, local communities, local neighborhoods, those matter to Google. And again, are you trustworthy? Does your website convey trust? Does it convey authority? And really ranking number one isn't about doing more. And that's why I said earlier, um, it's about doing the right things and just start somewhere. And if you want some guidance on where to start, we can certainly help you out there. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I want to thank our team. We put a fair amount of research into doing these webinars, so I'm grateful for everyone that joined. And certainly feel free to reach out to us or anyone on the team if you'd like an audit of your site or kind of where you're at, or just have a conversation about marketing in general. We love to chat and appreciate you joining today.